Welcome back, dear audience. Hope you're doing good. As always, so guys, do you think I'll be able to crack 1,000 subscribers sometime? Anyway, um, yeah, but I'm gonna do it my way. Sometimes I look at all these people having fun and talking. It's like um, talking about cool stuff and thousands of subscribers and millions views and stuff like that. And sometimes think like, dang, like I would like to have that, but I do, but it has to be done right because I can do this, like right, like I can play the algorithm game and all that stuff and everything, but that would sell my soul. I would lose the joy because then I would just say that it's kind of a cheating, right? Like the pleasure is derived from vanity, and it's usually at the cost of somebody else's pain, right? And so I don't want to have a relationship with you guys, which a lot of times this is what happens when there's like, a channel and because you have like the vampire who's feeding on it, and then you have the zombies who are just like a gullible and guzzling that Kool-Aid all day long. But they're leaking energy. It's a type of pain and pleasure interaction, but it's backwards. I don't want to have that type of relationship with you guys, and I don't, because nobody's blowing smoke up my butt. Um, People don't even like my videos, but who cares? But if somebody contacts me and I talk to them, I know that nigga is going to be legit, and that they are walking the talk and intelligent human being. And so that's the type of relationship I want to have. I don't want no scrubs. Anyway. And so, because I know how it feels when that just goes about like popularity and loses its soul. And also something weird happens with these people because they sandwich the lie within the truth. I don't know if they do it deliberately, but I think it just happens when you are becoming algorithms bitch. You see? And I know it's possible to do it without becoming an algorithms bitch. And so I prefer that way. Because on some of these channels, it's all about like, oh my God, just, the ass kissing on one end and then ass being kissed on the other. It's like, oh, look at me, I'm so awesome. And then it's like, yeah, kiss my ass. No, it's abominable. I don't want it. But I do want people who are real. And I would like to have a lot of views by people who are real. Because I think what I'm talking about, because it's so quite liminal, and a person who may not be engaged with this directly may see it as an abstract or something that like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? But it's not abstract. I'm talking about life. I'm talking about playing life, and I'm talking about what actually works with no bullshit. Because it's quite slippery slope, right? So let's talk about something cool. Huh? Shall we? So people talk about like man, woman, gender, what's this and that, stuff like that. Damn, it's so simple. People ask like, what do the women want? What do men want? Guys, it's so freaking simple. First of all, in consciousness, everything resolves back into infinity, coherence, orgasm. It's very simple. Whichever way you get it, the pleasure, orgasm, that's what people want. That's what women want. That's what men want. That's why women cheat. That's why men cheat. And they usually, when they, if you see them cheating, they're cheating with something that like way worse. They could have like a absolute gorgeous queen and cheat with some dumbass whore. Right? Why would that happen? Because ego derives a pleasure from the betrayal and at the cost of somebody else's pain. That's it. Because pain always wants to find pleasure and reconciliate. That's what it is. Now, this is why, like in a physical reality, in a temporal reality, going through pain towards pleasure is legit, because you then you get that enjoyment, that legit pleasure. I call it red passion. For example, I went to the gym yesterday. Oh, and I busted out my pecs, my triceps. I did the push day. And that's, going through pain. But you find pleasure through going through pain. Because right now my muscles are sore. When I'm gonna get a massage, it's gonna feel so fucking good, much better than if I haven't worked out. And even right now, like my body feels so good. I feel so good in my body. That pleasure that I get, that tone that I feel right now, it's because I've exercised, went through pain towards pleasure. That's legit. It's red passion. Okay? It's not emotional. That's why, like, the dark passion would be when you're getting off on emotional abuse, right? That's dark passion. The red passion would be when you're spanking somebody's butt. You know what I'm trying to say? A little bit of pain during pleasure is what's all about. Anyway, you get what I'm trying to say. You move towards pleasure through experience of pain, effort. That is in the red passion is legit. It's not what's in the blue passion, and it's not what it's in white passion. So you get the white passion or Perlamutra passion, blue passion, and then the red passion. And only in the red passion, this is legit. Because you want to connect the pleasure with pain. Pain is actually tension. In consciousness, there is this electromagnetic tension. When it does not have a possible pathway to be resolved, it is painful. Right? Its resolution is pleasure. Right? When there's too much pleasure, it gets flat. When there's too much pain, it gets too tense. Right? That's the difference between, for example, you striving and having an effort to go and do that workout in the gym, right? I don't have that thing. Because when the pathway is already towards a resolution within my consciousness, within my mind, I feel anticipation. I feel excitement. I don't feel, I have to go through the suffering again. Fuck that. And how do I do this? Why am I so excited to go to the gym? Sometimes there's some nice ladies. It's part of it. But shh. Let's not get distracted with that. But the direct exercising, the motion of the muscles already has built-in pleasure there. And so when I'm exercising like that, my mind is getting imprinted. It's like, oh, this feels really fucking good. Because I'm exercising quite differently right now. I'm just a bit on an offshoot. I do push-pull legs. I do two things in the gym first. What are the two goals? I mean, blood flow. Blood flow. That would be kind of interesting, right? But if you understand this and you say like, oh, it's about me rushing as much blood as possible and circulating my blood as much as possible into one particular muscle group or the other. That strengthens the tendons, that strengthens the bones, it strengthens the muscles, it strengthens everything. The blood flow. So what would you do if the blood flow would be one and primary goal, right? That's how you would exercise. Right? Just keep rushing that blood in there. And then that's like red, right? And basically when you exercise this way, the energy of you trying to rush the blood is quite enjoyable. It is not like when you do the strength training, right? Like it is different. And you want to move with the energy. You never want to move ahead of the energy, meaning that you never want to move your body away from your attention. You have to be attentive of every single frame of motion. And then you are in the movement, and then you can only sense that full, how there's an effort and pleasure is already in one. And that's how you start enjoying effort. Okay? Then more going into the strength, which is yellow, right? And that becomes more about electricity, nerves. Now you need to conduce a lot more nerve impulse to one place or the other, right? The blood flow prepares everything, makes everything nice and cushy. But now you want to strengthen the signal of electrical, current running through it, and that being strong. And you do that through the strength training. And now you forget any kind of blood flow or anything like that. You pick up the weight, and the only focus for you is to, go as deep as possible into that intensity, right? But you would need to have like maybe, honestly, like I do just one exercise where it's strength training, and it's my basically bread and butter: bench press, squats, and deadlifts, right? So those three are my backbone for strength training. These are the only ones that do strength training. All the other exercises for the blood flow. And once I started training like that, that's it. I also do a lot of negatives. I do what I call PFS 40, where I hold, after I do the set, I maybe hold the weight somewhere in between. That's isometric tension, because in the gym you rarely get to do this, and this is what that extra stuff that calisthenics give you, that kind of more grainy defined muscle through the isometric tension. And so I hold it for 20 seconds like this, and then I do the extreme extension, right? I stretch it with weight extremely, meaning obviously don't kill yourself, but like go deep with the weight into the stretch, and deep down, and they're like, oh, like there's that sweetness in there. So now you did everything. There's a blood flow, there's that nerve impulse training, which, by the way, this is how I did an experiment. I did a study with this with my own workouts, an actual study in the university. Actually, it was in Tennessee. And that's exactly what I found. What is the fastest way to gain strength? Is it first you focus on the blood flow. By the way, this is obviously going to prevent any kind of injuries, because you're not going straight to the heavy weight when your tendons and ligaments are not strong, or your fascia is not strong enough. You're going to fuck yourself up. And it doesn't get strong through the strength training, it gets strong through the blood flow. The tissues get stronger because of this. I know this will be discovered, that the blood flow and the bone density is heavily related, very heavily related. Okay, now let's have enough with the gym, okay? But this is the point that I'm trying to make. Going through effort towards pain, pleasure, you want to find that happy medium. That's what it is. So you want anticipation in life. Not in that like, oh my God, I have to do it again. Oh my God. No, you want anticipation. Because if you do this, then something you have not yet created, the pathway has not yet been created in your mind for you to not to see this as an anticipation and not just another effort. Okay, the pathway has to be created. And guys, I seem like I'm creating these pathways from scratch. I would have to. I mean, I'm asking questions like, why do I have to create that pathways from scratch? But I do. I think that the reason it has to be created from scratch is because the other pathway that was backwards is no longer functional. So it's like relearning, right? Before you would do things differently. Now you see like, oh, so you don't have to kill myself trying to get there. Like, okay, what needs to be done? Or this needs to be done. Immediately you start enjoying it in imagination. The movement of consciousness already has that pleasure in there. And even your imagination. And so you keep enjoying, putting that bliss, peace energy into joy of seeing that thing. Now you're building that that pathway and passion for it. Now when you wake up in the morning and your body, what happens? Your body's like, oh fuck, I can't wait to do this. Let's do that. And that's exactly what you need to be doing because you created that pathway. This is why, like, for example, when I'm struggling with some of the things that I have to do, it's like, I'm not going to push myself because I have not yet created a pathway in my mind. When I'm going to get to that, create that pathway in the mind, and I'm going to enjoy doing it. I'm not doing this shit anymore. I'm not killing myself over nothing. Okay, because that's not the riddle to resolve. Don't get caught by it. Okay? So yeah, the sex thing is when it's emotional, that's dark. When it's physical, it's legit. Okay? Because you're dealing with pain. Desire is pain. This is why sex and pain is so related. This is why, like, if you have no sex prospect with one particular person, it doesn't hurt you, you know. But if you do, then it does. And that's why sometimes people connect in like very abominable ways. So like, well, and somebody abusing and being abused. So no, so you say no to that riddle, right? Women are riddles, men are the riddle resolvers. But it's not like the women don't have responsibility to play their heroine journey. Because if you playing the male character or a female character in this video game, it matters tremendously. Because your mythology is going to be different. You see? So for a woman would be becoming the best and the most worthy riddle to be resolved. That's what the woman is striving for, really, right? Because to acknowledge that there's all sorts of riddles that is not worth solving. When you solve it, you get trapped. It's a fucking honey trap, right? And so you don't want to resolve that riddle. And so, and if you meet the type of woman, for example, or a man, well, let's talk about women right now because it's talking about riddles. And say, is it worth resolving this? If a woman does not have normal boundaries and kind of hoary or whatever, right? If you any kind of motion that you're gonna lean in with is going to be her pleasure at the cost of your pain, and it's not like equal exchange of value. And then that's why you have like all these simpings happening on OnlyFans. But I hear that bubble is bursting, and of course it will. Because anyway, I'll get to it. But that is that fragmentation, that dysfunction that I was talking about. So everybody's somewhere on that different permutations of that fragmentation or this fragmentation. Like everybody's on that, right? And so if the person is fragmented and he really wants to be successful in life, he's gonna need to have a lot of pleasure, and some of that pleasures may be very dark. And so you see, I'm trying to say that's the only solution, ego solution to it. And it's always going to be someone's pleasure at somebody else's pain, right? That's the type of dark side. No, and every time somebody gets off on it, right? They lose their soul. They literally lose their soul, because soul to me is that peaceful, joyful, and blissful energy. It's the soul energy. This is what just makes you, so cool. And so whenever that abominable pleasure happens externally, your soul shrinks. That energy is not there. Now it's sort of external you, and now you have to, that the tension becomes like external, and then now you have to, that's the addiction now. So your desire now, it's about resolving that addiction, right? That's when you're pushing your soul out into the temporal reality. Yeah, you're selling your soul. You literally, that's what you do, because that energy is supposed to be remaining infinite and reconciliated infinite. But when you push it out, it goes into temporal, and now it wants to be reconnected in an abominable way. Okay, there's no balance there. But of course, at the same time, you don't want to lose your soul by being a simp or tolerating abuse or whatever, right? All of that. You don't want to. You want the ego world to be where the ego world is, but it's not really ego. I would not call that ego anymore, because we have to be clear about this. What is ego? Ego to me is that exact same thing. Is leaking soul energy, which means making your soul darker and losing the feeling of joy within you, is ego. But there's part of you that acts as ego legitimately, and that is your body, your avatar. It seeks the things that it wants. Right? There you go. One second. So there, not all riddles are worth resolving, but you don't shun that person away either, because for alchemical purposes, you want to stay close to all sorts of people, because you will leak the energy too, because your joyful bliss energy may start leaking every time you like the shun opportunity away of alchemizing the energy, right? What you could do, like ideally in this particular moment, we all can get to this place and be on a cutting edge. That's one of the things that I discovered, that you can be on a cutting edge on alchemical process. You're calibrating in real time. You can get to that part. Sometimes people need to sort of catch up, right? When you start calibrating, there's a lot of shit that starts coming up, and it's like, oh my god, and it may need to take some time to process all of that stuff when it starts coming out. right? But eventually you catch up and you get to the point where like, okay, yeah, I can do this in the real time. Okay, you can be on the cutting edge. You're not saying that like, well, I finished my Philosopher's Stone right now, or, which by the way, um, anyway, there is an end to it, but I don't want to get to that point yet because everything that I'm saying here is actually happening. Like, we're at this particular stage, and what is important to know at this particular stage, and what's going to happen also could be all foreseen from this point, and how everything works out. So let's just go back into this male female dynamic. It's very simple. Sometimes men say about that's a female nature. It's not a female nature. It's an ego nature, right? There is a female nature there on the physical, and it's true what women may want or enjoy, and what makes them have an orgasm in a physical sex, or monogamous relationship. There are things there of the red passion that you're supposed to be figuring it out and resolving that piece of the puzzle, but never crossing the line into the dark passion. That's why you have to say no to women who just try to, for example, if you want to have a one woman at a time per experience, whether this experience lasts a lifetime, 5 years, 1 week, or 1 day, doesn't matter, but one woman at a time, I suppose, if you are at that point. Then if somebody does not want to participate in this type of dynamic, and they just want to have, like, I don't know, open relationships or some stupid ass shit, or whatever the fuck they're doing, and they want to be in that field, then it's a different type of game. And you have to say no, because then they would fucking pull you in that field. You see what I'm trying to say? As soon as you break that rule and you go into this, you sort of level down a little bit. Now you're in that field. So you have to be a different field to have that what you want, right? Like, you really have to be. But if you want to play the field, so to speak, which is addiction, pleasure, in my book, because you would not need to play the field otherwise. You would just want to have, like, the best fit for you. Of course, you will get the best fit for you because that's the most enjoyment and satisfaction you can have. You, rather than diluting it, like, with 5-10 people, whatever, and neither of them, they really scratch that deep itch. They never touch you that deep. So it's not worth it. You go with the person that connects with you the most and at the deepest level. Okay, but that's the hardest one. You would not be able to, you would need to be living on a cutting edge, basically. You cannot not be not good at calibrating energy. You would have to be able to surf that wave, right? And then, of course, so there's an internal riddle to resolve as a woman, and then external riddle to resolve as a woman. And so I don't know what the fuck this idiot was saying, to be like, I know so many things, but I don't know what women want. Maybe you start with that. And then you'll find out about everything else in the world, how everything works. That's my motto. And it's quite simple. This explains all sorts of behaviors and and people going to the monogamous relationships where they just still fully like fragmented and they create that mask and they don't connect with the person. It just looks good and stuff like that. And I know that. I know. And when people do that, I know that game. I know that bullshit. Come on. And even I know what kind of distortions they have. So for them to do that, it's like, well, I'm not worthy, the one that I really, really want, so I'm just gonna settle in for this second-hand option. And second-hand is not just like one level below. It's basically the opposite. It's the suffering rather than bliss. You see, everybody wants that real reward and stuff like that, but everybody's trying to cheat at it. Don't cheat at it. You will get that. You'll get, because you can get you can get a quick fix, or you can go the whole journey, and then you're gonna get that fix too, but as a emergent property of you living life correctly, and as a man being really good riddle solver. It is really like, even make love to a woman, it is a type of uh, riddle to solve, an instrument to play. There's so much to learn, and you'll learn everything about consciousness. And it's the best game ever. To me, in this life, it's all about that. There's one part that you make war, and another part that you make love. There's nothing in life besides that. See, I make love a little bit by drinking this coconut juice. There, I just bagged the coconut. You see? How easy it is. It is so. To me, in life right now, I'm either in a state of making love or making war. I like both. Making war is that staying on the edge. Like, because if you don't make war, then you can't make love. Because making war charges you up with that energy as a man. And then when you bring that energy to your girl after you just slay the dragon, I'm just trying not to be vulgar here, but and standing there with that type aura, everything's already in the bag, guys. It's already bagged and ready to go. That's it. No games, no bullshit, nothing. Just do the things that the man needs to do. And then just the way you feel is enough of you being real. And that's what women want. A woman wants to feel a man's soul. That's what the woman wants. Because that feeling is the best thing in the world for her, and nothing else will top it. That's what the real woman wants. That's what the real man wants. But if a woman is still fragmented and leaking her energy and has not yet went through her own heroine journey, and she's not cutting edge as a woman, but still sort of lost in the sauce somewhere, then guess what? Your, knight in shining armors aura may not be that appealing if she enjoys being abused. Intrinsically, it is appealing, of course, but she may not choose that, and she may choose that secondhand not option, right? Then you would say like, why would a woman do that? Well, there you go. There's a payoff, that type of payoff that she right now understands, and she would have to move more into her soul for her to really to be able, sometimes it's like to withstand that type of energy. So that's what's really going on. It explains everything. And what you want, like, right? Like, if you're still fragmented and if you want to play the dark side, then okay, then you go out and manipulate women and do all sorts of foofy faffy spell work on them, so they could even like you. Brainwash them so they could even like you. That's how fucking unlikable you are, you piece of shit. Through your own decision. And when you play that stupid ass game, empty, and keep on trying to scratch an itch with the boxing glove. You can do that if you're stupid. But it doesn't even matter. Like, right now, like, I don't care about that even. When I see a person and they select that over this when you have an option, to me it's like, at first I was like, motherfucker, do you even know what you're saying no to? When people prefer to cycle in their loop rather than living on a cutting edge. I'm not talking about just women, I'm talking about everybody, in all sorts of situations where you could see that the person could take that, but don't. And so the coward is the word that comes to mind. Because some of it, hesitation, I understand. You may just like touch it a little bit and you're like, whoa, okay. All right, okay, a little bit more. And so you eventually figure that shit out. It's okay to sort of like back out a little bit at first. But to have a curiosity to keep coming back to it, that's the way. But if the curiosity is not there in gravitating towards this other secondary option, then it's it. Now, before you're gonna find those two people who are already gravitating towards this, and other people who just to the other way. And you can't pull them back, these people who go the other way. It doesn't work like that. You use that for alchemy. So you win-win. If you meet a person, there is a connection there. You alchemize everything. That is not right. You use it for that. And so you receive that type of, because of that catalyst, you receive that capacity now to be even more defragmented or more singular within your soul. And there's like more of that peaceful, blissful energy that is floating around there. And I'm getting accustomed to it. It takes time to get accustomed to it. I would never say anything against a person who would just not dive into it like completely like crazy. as some people do, but just taking it easy and little by little, but wanting it. That's what's important. This was so important for me to understand, because that is one thing. You can be ultimately in charge of everything and responsible for everything, but on a smaller scale you are not really. For example, you can't force a person to gravitate towards this end. You cannot force them. However, what you can do is go there yourself, and that will make you alchemize all sorts of fragmentations that are there because of that relationship that cannot reconciliate. You're going to have to reconciliate through the heart, and this is how you gain all of that soul back. And when I say soul, in this particular case, like I said, I mean blissful, peaceful energy running through your body, through your system. That's what the soul is. La soul. And the ego is that thing where it just kind of, cramps your style. And at any point in time, you can find the golden lining about it. And so you're not trying to sort of get to the next, because you're finding that golden lining about it. And it's a good saying to find the golden lining about it, because there's going to be a point in your consciousness where it's somewhere in between gravity, expansion, vibration, and flow. Somewhere over there, you're going to click and find that golden lining, and just stay with that golden lining, and now you're on the edge. You're there, so to speak. Understand? And so anybody can go there at any time. Eventually, you want to live there. You know? I know you do. Cheers. So there you go. Hopefully that answers all your questions on the subject. So, as I said, you keep a lot of friends like that for the alchemical purposes. So it's fair, you don't become anti-social and you socialize with everybody or anybody, right? But you always socialize through that lens, through that alchemical lens, always calibrating. And if you always calibrate in any kind of situation that you're interacting with, you're going to have the most genuine interaction with everybody that you could have. And then you're good, you're fine. That's it. That's all you need. That's how you socialize, from the most authentic point with everybody. And that means always meeting that feeling. When you meet a person and that feeling arises, always meeting that feeling and alchemizing that. That's how you socialize with all sorts of people who live on all sorts of, fragmentary things. So you can come to this cutting edge thing. But if you're on the cutting edge, then of course, if you really want to have fun, you're only going to have fun with somebody who's also on that cutting edge or willing to go there. I'm saying? Alrighty then. Anything else? No, some of the things that you can handle in a relationship, because when you are in a relationship with somebody and on cutting edge, you always, both of you need to be calibrating. But then that's what you'll always be at most authentic point, and very honest with each other and real. Um, but to have a boundary of what you want, for example, because look, if you go and say yes and connect with somebody who's kind of a bit whorish or whatever, right, or crookish, then immediately you're back down in the vibration. You're not vibing the same way no more. So you just degraded yourself. If you stay in a high vibration by alchemizing everything, living on the cutting edge, and always choosing that, not only that you feel really good, any kind of genuine relationship that will stem from that, that's the only one that you want. You're inviting everybody to connect only through that. And if you hold that long enough, things will start to break, and you start meeting more and more people on that level of vibration. Because there are these tribes based on the level of vibration. Eventually, when you can, like I said, you're going through all sorts of levels here, and you're not afraid of going down the level and interacting with these people, because you're not getting sucked into this because of the hermetic seal that you have, that you're not leaking your soul energy no more. So then you can go through all the levels, and because of the seal, you're not getting into this. You're not getting, you know, because if you don't, you go into this, and then all these addictions that everybody has in that type of vibe now are yours. That's why people trying to like quit an addiction. You don't quit an addiction, you quit the reality where addiction exists. You go into another reality where addiction does not exist. That's what it is. It is a different reality. So I keep on interacting with people at all sorts of levels, but I try not to flip and play their games. Let them play their games. It's fine. It is not my game. I'm playing this calibration energy game, and connecting an appropriate way, and and doing my due diligence where I need to do. That's my game. That's what I'm playing. This is why I'm hanging out with them. It's a lot of enjoyment if I'm hanging out for one reason, is enjoyment. But not the pleasure of the game that they're in, because otherwise you're done. This is why I would be a friend um, to somebody who's playing that game promiscuous or whatnot. Like, I would be the friend, but I would not be participant of that promiscuity, because then that would be me leaking the energy of my soul, and all that stuff. I think that it is enough to try that once on all these 72 or 144 permutations, all sins, commit all sins possible, and after committing that sin, find the sun. And so then that's how you're capable of having that riddle resolution on all of these levels. I don't know what makes people to choose to stay there and others to leave that. I don't really know. But I do know that if I leave that and stay here as much as possible and, you know, set my boundaries and you see what I'm trying to say, like just play the game right, just the way you're supposed to approach this game of what is going on. You're supposed to socialize with everybody and alchemize. Don't get into their game, with, because if you don't socialize with somebody who's like, you know, like completely woke, for example, um, then you don't get to have that energy exchange, which is your benefit, because you get your soul energy. You maybe you train yourself not to leak energy. You see what I'm trying to say. So it's good. They are playing the role in your life, and you play a game that you play, but with everybody. Okay. Now, that's it. I think we covered everything, because your soul, that Perlamutra energy, that joy, that always is there. You always need to be calibrating to have that. Mind, the blue shift, it is this blue passion, and it's just like this enjoyment of your imagination. And you got to create that in the imagination before you do it in physical, otherwise it's not. Like that includes anything that you need to do. It's like if you want to exercise in the gym, right, you may start imagining that, and there may be already like something that is just like the feeling. Okay, so alchemize that until it's gone, until it's zeroed out. Now imagine yourself, you know, doing the exercise and moving and enjoying all of that motion, imagination in motion, but it is motion, legit motion nonetheless. And if you imprint that pathway, then, like I said, then your body wants to go there, do that, because that's what leads to that enjoyment. You have built it with your mind first. If you have not built it with your mind, then it's going to be struggle, and then you would be, it's like, oh, so why are you doing it? Because you're not enjoying it. Why are you doing it? Oh, because I get likes, and that's what people want of me. I have to be fit, and all that stuff. You see what I'm saying? So it's a different type of being fit. It's you know. And even muscles look different when somebody is suffering in the gym and somebody's enjoying. Look at this round little bun. Right? The blue shift. Blue shift, don't forget it. This is something that I have to go into a lot more. There's a lot of things that I still have to create the pathways on. But I am working on it. It is a type of motion, you know, it's just like you going, doing something and taking any kind of physical task. It's the exact same thing. It is this creative task, but it's task nonetheless. It needs to be first created before it becomes real and physical. If it's not created there, then it's not real and physical. It's going to be forced. But whenever it's created in a blue shift, then the red shift flows easy. That is when you get that type of anticipation in the body. Hey, let's do this as a next thing, and you just anticipate that, like, oh, okay, that feels good. and so you follow your excitement. Now, that is legit to say, follow your excitement. But you have calibrated it, you have created the pathways that are right, and then you followed it. Because otherwise, if you have not created this, all of these pathways, and so what the fuck are you following? You may follow your excitement into taking heroin, or cocaine, whatever, right? You may say like, hey, I followed my excitement. What the fuck? You said follow my excitement, right? So no, follow your excitement is the last thing to say. First, you calibrate the energies until you're at the cutting edge. The second, you use your imagination and you literally visit that type of reality where that is already the case while enjoying it, because enjoyment is very important, because it means that there is an energy in the picture that you're creating. Okay? That is how I said, like, working out in the gym without losing the movement of energy and never moving without energy. Moving with the focus and being aware of every single frame per second, or even faster. Maybe even faster. You can be aware even more. That is really becoming aware more of that. And so there's a lot more energy there now. And so when I'm moving, it feels amazing. But if I would just not pay attention there and I'm moving my hand, and just to get to the number of this, that's it. Like, I lost it if I do that. Now I'm moving without the energy, without pneuma. And that pneuma is soul energy. Right? So you imbue your soul energy in the things that you're imagining. You're not just creating a picture and just like, okay, well, that's the picture. I need to get through this. No, you start immediately. The first thing that you imagine, you already need to be feeling it as some blissful freaking feeling. And I would start even with letting your imagination interpret that feeling. And so you might start seeing all sorts of like jewels and gems and stuff like that. That's what I would start. That's what DMT realm, by the way, is. One of those DMT realms where you are in your soul fully. Right? And not a weirdo. You're just living your life and you look like a happy person who enjoys life. That's it. That is as far as you get, and the rest of it is just playing. It's just fun, just enjoyment. And so there's that clarity. If you are ready, for example, to quote unquote level up, you level up without, sort of not having any kind of relationship with other people who live in the fragmentation, because you need to stay there as well to keep your hermetic shield on, so to speak. You see what I'm trying to say? Keep on alchemizing the energies. This is the part where I say fighting the demons. This is why I go where people, are like that. And so then that's the energy there. And so I get to fight these demons, so to speak, and build up more of that pneuma energy. I basically build up that pneuma energy by alchemizing egos. or ego energy. And I don't know, that maybe is what could be helping other people to start preferring moving towards this more and giving more energy towards the soul and less energy towards the ego. That's essentially what it is. I see this as a toroidal field, and you can see some of those at the top radiation and in the bottom radiation. They try to reconciliate these 2 points that's moving. They try to reconciliate right there, and to create that interference pattern, therefore light, and therefore like that pleasure and pain in one as an infinity. And on the outside, you can see that some of it is already reconciliating, right? But there's some of us that are still not, and it's still moving in that lower pressure type of double torus field creating, because it's cycling itself right now. It's not reciprocating because it has not been resolved yet, right? And because it's cycling, you're bound to go to that type of pleasure because you're cycling there. And you can know exactly, right? You don't have to even know much about the person. And if the person is cycling, you know exactly what they're going to do, what gets them off, so to speak, right? And so that's it. That's the motion of consciousness. Same thing with you when that is still circling. But it's creating that tension. It wants to be resolved. It can be resolved through its own level, through, like I said, that abominable way, or can resolve through infinity again to become at the cutting edge. Right? And so eventually that inner toroidal field gets completely resolved, and so all the energy gets returned to that core, which is this new energy, and that's your soul. That all energy gets returned to that. That's not to say that on a bigger scale that's not already something else not going on, which is like that repeated thing that needs to be done on a physical, because there's reoccurring pleasures that are arising and needs that are arising that needs to be satisfied. And so there's this motion, creative motion, playful motion, and physical, because there's still that need for that red passion pleasure. And so you do that for that. Enjoying food, like the more like, I don't know, exotic food or whatever, exotic music, whatever, like it's just, whatever pleasures are available, you earn them in this particular case. Right? And that's it. So you could be like the best possible effect on all sorts of people, because you're not disconnecting from nobody, like in your soul, because you are basically facing everybody, the darkest one and the brightest one. And then that's when you're golden. I think with this we're gonna have to end. Alright guys, hope you enjoyed my video. Peace, and I'll see you in the next one.